Welcome everyone to Courage to Impact, this conversation that connects women. Look at the faces here. Who are we here? Just look at, we're all smiling. It's very important for us that you feel safe here, not only to listen, but also to contribute. We are going to have a brilliant conversation. Brilliant conversations are those conversations that actually get us in a place where we can remember what we know, but we forgot or we didn't have it active, where the purpose is to learn, to expand. We are not here to solve anything. We are not here to figure out the world. But we stand in LIS Woman. This is an open event, so the people that don't belong to the community have a peek about what it means to be in a conversation with other people like-minded. Also, in this case, the same gender women, and in similar professional situations. In LIS Woman, we believe that women can have a huge impact in how organizations are going to be shaped in the future. There's this potential inside the human being, and we can create spaces where the potential gets developed, gets shared, and used. And that not only is it has a satisfaction inside the person. If I can develop my potential, that obviously is going to impact myself, but it's also if we create these spaces where other people can develop their own potential, whether they are women, men, or whatever other gender, also a responsibility to do it. That's why we created a community where we can support each other. Because when we talk about this, when we talk about dreams, it's very energetic. Is oh yes, let's go and do it. But then in the day to day, we start finding the obstacles, the pain, and we are here to remind you that you don't have to do it alone. That is easier to do it with other people. Is more fun and more sustainable.
I really think that courage to impact is a super useful topic. And to your question, that what do we want to impact, and maybe I would rather say to influence in a positive way. Actually, that's for me impact, because you can make a lot of different type of impact. And I'm quite simple in that. Whatever I'm doing, my objective or my purpose is to add some value, to make a little bit better. Let it be whatever it is, being at home or being with my daughter or being at work. Actually, just to provide something that adds value, and it can be really a many different way of bringing that value to life.
When my mother passed away, I had to go through all her paperwork. This was a while ago. And I found a letter that she had to get her father to sign, giving her permission to get her first job as a cashier in a bank in 1970. So before she could get a job as a 22-year-old girl, woman, human, she had to go to her dad with her contract of employment, and she had to say, "Dad, please, can you sign this so I can go and start a career?" Flash forward many years, and my niece has just started her first year at Amsterdam University. She's doing one of the most complex degrees in economics. 33% are women, 67 are men, which means that straight away she's in a minority in the team. Secondly, they have a 50% fallout rate in the first year. That's the complexity of economics, which means by the time she gets to her master's and she gets out into the real world, there will be a small amount of these female talents available for the market. And here I am working in a bank where I look at the leadership of markets, mergers and acquisitions, various domains, and it's still predominantly male strong. What impact do I want to make? By the time she gets out of university, I would like her to be able to look up that ladder and see female leaders. Simple.
How courage is defined, and the definition is that courage is not blind to dangers or difficulties. It is the capacity to persist in spite of fears, failures, and sufferings. So it's really about how to handle. Fear is there, and also difficulties and challenges are there. The question is that how can we really handle that, and what is the way how we manage those fears and difficulties, and create that kind of capability and ability to manage. And when it comes to in an organization, how can you be courageous in a constructive way, or let it be in other territory of your life? What does that mean? How to show up?
How can we continue to not be discouraged? Is to include the fear, to include the obstacles as part of the journey. They are going to be there. The fact that we have obstacles doesn't mean that is the wrong dream or is the wrong, is they are there. And courage, as you started saying, it is the beginning. Actually, courage is what we are going to need in the face of those difficulties. Any other thing to add, Annemiek?
I have a list of things to add, so I'm just going to throw them all in there and just let them percolate. Resilience. I think don't give up, because people are going to hammer you in any kind of scenario, and sometimes your idea is a good one, but it needs to be mentioned several times before it's heard. Have a tribe. You need a decompression team that you can just go to and be your authentic self and share your fears with, and then step out into the world with your armor on and keep trying. And read the room. Find out who the key players are, and if you want to make impact, there will be people who will boost that and block it. Find out who the boosters are that can help you make the impact you want, and learn how to manage the blockers.
Sometimes we will have to say the same thing a few times. There's 4 gaps that women find out, and probably not that they impact the influence that we have or the impact that we make.
I think these are social biases that women, but even not just by gender, but from many aspects, people are facing across the career. The question, I think, is that how do you behave if you notice that you are handled in a biased way? Do you tend to accept that? Because I think that's the danger, that you are immediately position yourselves where you are positioned, and you don't leave that positioning, but you are just tend to behave in a way that you are not competent, you cannot lead, etc., etc. Or you just simply don't put yourself into that shoe, but you have enough self-confidence and purpose that you know what you want, and you start behaving differently, and the reaction gets different. I think the key challenge is that when you are in that situation, especially in the early phase of your career, you do not have yet the self-confidence. And if you don't have an environment around you which is supportive, which is engaging, but rather challenging, then I think it can really go very quickly into the direction that even with a great potential, somebody losing ambition because of that. So I think that's a critical piece, how you handle these biases, and how can you help in a workplace those situations, because it obviously starts with an inner confidence. But even if you don't have that at that point in time, there's a lot of things that you can still do to develop yourself and further drive confidence. And what I kind of learned that the key values and purpose can really help you a lot, because even if you are under pressure or under challenge, if you can go back to a kind of a skeleton that is very firm, even you are getting some challenges that can give you power, that can give you strength again to get back and also to manage yourself in a way how you want to manage yourself.
Also growing the self-confidence. And you talk about having a supportive, or when you do not have a supportive environment, this is even more key. And this is one of the reasons why we need to pay attention to have those supportive environments, if not at work, somewhere else.
I was very young, around 23, 4, or whatever. and I got a job as a key account manager. And I received, after a couple of local customers, Rewe, which was one of the biggest customers at that time. And I went to see the purchasing director and have the negotiation. All went fine, at least how I thought. And the guy was calling the purchasing director next day, was calling my boss, telling him that it would be better not to send me there, but rather pay my salary to the prices, because it would worth much more. And that was really shocking to me, because I really prepared a lot. I think I was good. I mean, I did, of course, it was in my early of my career, but I still think that I kind of managed well the situation. And then I really realized that it was really a clear attack, that, okay, I was tough. I didn't, give what he wanted. And he thought, okay, it's easy to challenge, I give a feedback to her boss, and then the boss will send somebody else who maybe will be a bit easier than her. And I was lucky, because I had a great boss at that time, and he was fully supporting me. And he said to the guy that, listen, if you can agree with her, then we will have a business. If don't, we will not have a business. So he was really backing me up. But I think that's not always the case.
What would you recommend to someone that is in the same situation? And the boss goes, look, they've suggested me to change you. You are not going to be involved in that account anymore. What would you suggest now with all the experience that you have?
Leave the company immediately. Of course, reflect. Of course, that's the number one. Whether it was really not proper, of course, that's number one, to have the self-reflection. But if you go through that process and still believe that it was not fair, I think it's important that you shouldn't let yourself pushing down.
Sometimes we try to make it work anywhere, and if it's difficult, we'll try harder, and we'll make this person see my worth, and we'll just get so how you call it, not only tired, but completely we will spend more time on trying to fix things than in actually bringing value.
I also think leave before it becomes toxic for you and others.
Leave before. Say more about that.
Because there's such a fine line between this is not working and then it eating into you. And then that starts reflecting, becoming who you are, which it isn't. It's not you. And a seasoned executive coach came on and said, I'm going to give you advice on how to handle conflict in the workplace. If your colleague confronts you and you have this moment and they start becoming microaggressive and shouting at you, it's important for you to put your hand up and say, stop. This is not what I want right now. This is not the way we're going to communicate. I'm going to step out of this until you calm down. And then she continued to say, if that happens and comes from your leadership, so your management, that's a different story. You need to listen. You need to hear what they're saying. And while I'm listening to a talk, I can feel like my hair, 2 o'clock in the morning, my hair's standing up. And say to them, thank you. I've heard what you've said. How would you like me to redefine or change my behavior so that this will work better for you? So I thought, let me go to the comments before I start having thoughts here. And it was phenomenal. And then I realized it's generational. She's clearly a late Gen X, early boomer. This is the advice she's giving. The Gen Zs and the millennials came on and said, nobody, regardless of their situation and who they are, should speak to you, and you should not tolerate it. And no, you do not need to stand there and listen to them.
I think maybe just to bring one aspect is the what and the how, because I think in many cases, especially when you want to challenge a situation to impact, and that's actually the impact starts with a certain kind of challenging status quo, how to do it in a way that it is perceived well, in a way that it is it can really make a difference. And what I learned throughout the many years, that what is less important than the how. Of course, what is also important, because it should add value. It should make a sense. It shouldn't just, ask or challenge something just to show off, or just, it doesn't make any sense what you are asking or what you're bringing as an aspect. But I think the way you do it, how you communicate, I think the communication aspect is as at least as important, because the way how it will be handled, or the message goes through, is highly dependent on how you phrase yourself and how you challenge respectfully. I think that's something very, very difficult in my view, but also very powerful if you do it properly.
Do you think courage is a muscle?
Mm.
And you have to feel the pain to understand how it works. I have this saying, which I love: lean into the discomfort. So every time somebody tells me that they've got this thing that they're terrified about or scared, or this obstacle that they're coming into, I smile and go, lean into the discomfort, because it's where the discomfort happens that the courage and the strength is built. In any scenario, any situation. So sometimes you don't feel the courage, but lean into the discomfort until the courage comes.
I thank you for that. I usually remind myself that courage and confidence is what you feel after you've stepped into the discomfort, into the fear. That the way I say to myself is, that's the gift that you receive for saying yes. And remember that there is a lot of people, they say, okay, I'm gonna build my confidence, I'm gonna feel secure, and then I will take the steps. It doesn't really work like that.
A friend of mine had a grandmother who, underneath her bed, she had a suitcase filled with everything that she was saving for best. So
Say that
it was her
again?
saving for best, saving for her best outing. So she had her best clothes. She had her best cutlery in there for those dinners. And that suitcase never came out from under her bed, because it became for best, and best should be every day.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, I'm a large, chubby woman who won't get into a bikini, but I'm watching people, beautifully voluptuous women, wearing bikinis with such pride and confidence and no body shame. And I'm thinking, they're not saving anything for when they drop 3 sizes.
No.
They're living their best life now as they are. And that takes courage. You're leaning into your discomfort because you don't look like the norm. It fascinates me what gets people to live their best version, and they don't have that suitcase underneath the bed that we all have. We're saving versions of ourselves for best. We should pull it out and show it off now, and have some fun with it.
I love it, because it is I can make parallels from that to where we say that, and even in our organizations, what I'm not saying just because it's not in the right way or in the best way, and when everything is in the right place, then I will go and say it. Or let's wait for when the person is in the right place, so then I will say it. This I hear a lot. I'm waiting for the right moment to say it. Well, you might wait forever then.
It also connects a bit to self-confidence, because then you dare to be yourself.
Yeah.
And you don't need the precious moment, but you just simply dare. And I think that's very much connected also to how confident you are in internally.
The muscle building of courage really resonates with me, because if you ask yourself, what would I be doing if I wasn't afraid? What would I like to shine at? For me, I really love singing and I love being in a choir, but I don't like to sing a solo, even though I secretly want to sing the solo. But so that has been, it's essentially the exposure therapy that people with phobias have to go to. The more you do it, the less uncomfortable it becomes, or the more manageable it is. And that's also where the self-confidence comes in, because you go through the experience and you come out all right on the other side.
Can I give my perspective? I think it really also depends on how much value this role gives you, beyond if you like it or not. So can you learn can you develop an area where you would never have a chance to experience? I had many times roles that I didn't like, but it gave a lot to my career. It helped me to bring me to the next level, either because I ticked a box which was important for the next move, or because I really learned something from a personal development point of view or professionally.
You have to ask yourself the question, is it me? Is it the situation that I'm in? Is it the people that I'm around? Can I make a difference here? Am I wasting valuable energy? Do I have the spirit, tenacity, and resilience to try and figure out how to fix this and win them over? Am I managing these people at an optimal level for the way they need to be managed so I can get things done? Those are the questions I would ask myself.
Sometimes I see that we tend to take too literally the job description that is given to us. And so maybe one thing that can be done that I know I've done a few times and it has helped me is just to, sit down and think, how would I interpret this role? And, not thinking just about, the title of the role or whatever, whether you're connected to this department or that department, but, being me at this kind of, point in time in my career, how would I add business to this? How would I add value to this business?
To me, that's actually one of the ways we can impact and influence change in organizations, by bringing what is not there, a different way of doing things. And this is the one thing that we can do, bring it here and see what is the impact in the situation, and see if the system is ready to change.
You mentioned one important point, that you shouldn't convince, and I think that's something to consider, because then the impact gets kind of diluted, or you even get into a challenge of not even heard or listened, because once you want to convince, then the other party immediately blocks. So it's very important not to go into that trap, to impact and then to argue endlessly to make sure that your idea is going through, but bringing a new aspect into the table in a way that it, as we just said, can do that respectably challenging, but still in a way that opens up a new perspective that was not considered previously.
About this convincing, within LIS Woman, we've talked a few times about the difference between trying to explain your logic and destroy the logic of others, and we call that convincing. And it's not your logic that will convince or influence. What we want is we don't want it to say to be static. We don't want to say, is A better than B or B better than A? What we want to do is, let's hear about, all of the insights that come with your choice of A. Let's hear about all of the insights that come with the choice of B, and probably we can find, some learnings, and then together we create C.
We target executives that pivot quickly and show agility in high pressure scenarios. So we focus on those. We'll ask them for scenarios where they've been on one side of the table and they needed to move to the other against their logic, but for the betterment of the situation. And it really is a quality that we admire in our leaders.
When you're firm but not rigid in what you are bringing, meaning you are open to the outcome, your level of influence becomes stronger.
We also look at the motivation, courage to impact. And what is the person's motivation? Is it self-fulfillment? Is it about them, or is it about the greater good? And you used it earlier. I always do this versus this. Mentally, I meet somebody and I think, well, you're about yourself and you're what's in it for me. And then you meet someone who really is just about the bigger picture. And courage to impact should be associated with bigger than myself. If you're just thinking about the impact for yourself, then door shut before you even start talking, because everyone's going to see it for what it is.
Definitely. It helps bringing the courage. If it's not just for my own, if it's for something bigger, the spotlight is not on me, it's on what we are creating. So is so much freeing. And okay, if I fail, I fail. Somebody else will bring another idea, or somebody else. So it actually helps in confidence, because it's not about me, it's about what we are creating.
What I was discovering in the reading of the preparation, that purpose is a source of courage.
I was reading an article on toxic optimism, no, toxic positivity, and it outlined what that was. And I thought, oh my goodness, am I toxically positive? Because I tend to really always look at the positive outcome for things. I don't have time to focus on the negative. And I always find I get the result faster if I'm being optimistic. But this article encourages you to go to the space of non-positivity and to allow that journey, which is fine, but it doesn't suit my personality. So I was thinking it really comes down to how we manage life from our perspective and the person opposite us, and perception on what your emotions I may perceive in a different way. And that's the complexity of human beings, you know. So I've decided to scratch toxic positivity with ruthless optimism.
Let me just add one thing, and remember that even the worst situation of discrimination can actually be tackled with a little bit of courage and humor, as Monica was saying. I had for many years the negotiations in business development with different organizations where there were men and they hated to have to deal with a woman. And they were making very, funny comments. And I would, just sometimes go and say, okay, yeah, you're saying that, you have to say it. Oh, okay, this goes into my black book. I'll remember that. Okay, let's go ahead. And then it became a job for everybody. They were correcting each other, oh, carefully what you say. It goes into the black book of Laura, So you can sometimes, go ahead with the humor for that. And these are the sort of things that we can share with each other. You've heard from Agnes and Annemieke today, and we've talked with each other. It feels so much easier when you have examples, other people who go through the same. So find support, around you. And if you want the support from LIS Woman, in the chat, that's the link.
This is one of the things that we do in LIS Woman. Whoever needs support or they need something, they can come and say, hey, what it is that I do in this situation. And it is not for anyone to fix, but it is so you can actually be in a bigger conversation than the one that you already have in your mind.